Hmm. Hi, Deb. Hmm. Okay. I can't look at this.
Oh, Sarah's on. Sarah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hmm.
You are on. Jeb's muted, but Sarah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay.
Where? Not getting any sound anywhere. Oh yeah.
Oh, here.
So I'm not getting any sound. Yeah. Sarah's on.
Hey, everyone.
Hello. How are you?
Hello.
Oh, I'm doing better. I had my knee surgery on Easter. Then 3 weeks later, I got an infection in my knee.
Oh no.
So I spent a week in the hospital and, life-saving stuff. I have a PICC line in my arm.
Oh my gosh.
this thing goes to my heart, and I have to administer antibiotics 3 times a day. Walking with a cane, but I'm still doing charity events for Susquehanna Pantry. So
There you go.
yeah, you know, the show must go on. So
Did you have a full knee replacement on?
no, it feels like I did. I broke my kneecap and I tore my patellar tendon. So they removed about 10% of my kneecap and reattached the tendon to the 90% that was left.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it retracted all the way into my thigh. It was nasty, but yeah. Go ahead.
You have any hardware in there? Plates or screws? Or
No. Well, the doctor left shards of metal in my knee, so that wasn't good. But other than that, no, nothing. I mean, all the cartilage and meniscus and all that stuff was good. So
okay, good.
infection should be gone by now. So I'm turning it forward.
Good, man. Quick recovery, people.
Yes. I got youth on my side.
There you go. There's a lot to be said about that.
Yes, sir. All right, I'm going to mute myself and turn off my camera.
Okay, it looks like we're still waiting for a quorum.
There. No.
One.
So we have 1, 2. We have 3 board planning commission members on, so we need 1 more. I know Frank and Mitch will not be able to attend. So hopefully Carrie and Bill will jump on shortly.
I saw Carrie at the event, the charity event on Saturday.
Okay.
Looking dapper as always.
Didn't get any answer. Carrie's not going out available. My apologies.
All right, I don't know what to do here. Nope. Can't participate.
Carrie's getting on now, so we'll have a quorum shortly.
There are 19 people on this thing and I can't see them. I just.
Hi,
I
Carrie.
can't see myself.
Hi there.
Frank isn't able to attend, so
No, I can't.
you're in charge tonight.
There was a thing up here before.
Okay.
Look at everybody. I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Let me see it. There it is.
Mr. Stewart, can you mute yourself, please?
You can go up or down right here.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to.
Okay. So we have Jonathan, Brian, Delone, and you, Carrie.
Okay.
Mitch and Frank cannot attend.
All right.
But we do have a quorum now, so.
Hey, welcome everyone to our May 24th, 2021 Susquehanna Township Planning Commission. Call the meeting to order. Do we have any public comment? tonight, other than what's on our agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to approval. of the-
Hello, anybody there?
Yeah, we're here.
That's
Sarah's shaking her head no. We could put a sign up.
just hold
Mr.
on
Stewart, we see you. Mr. Stewart, your video is coming through. Get down to the bottom of the page and click on your either mute or stop video, one of the two, please. Bottom left. You may want to call in if you cannot hear us live. There is
Hello?
a call-in number. Pardon me? Okay, well, I guess we'll continue with the meeting. I'd like to consider approval of the minutes at this point, the April 26, 21 monthly meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those as read?
I'll make the motion. This is Jonathan.
Okay, it's been moved that we accept the monthly meeting minutes of April 26 as read. Do I hear a second?
I'll second those. This is Brian.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we approve the minutes as read for April 26, 21. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes?
Yes.
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 Okay, the next issue we have, I guess, is the 3401 and 3405 North Front Street. Mr.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on, Mr. Stewart.
Hello?
Hello?
So I've sent Mr. Stewart a private message to try to get him to call in since he's obviously having technical issues.
Okay,
I don't know if he's seen that message, but I'm not sure what else we
yeah, I
can.
see he held up a
Yeah,
message.
you can hold up a sign, Betsy.
Oh, okay. I missed
Yeah.
that.
His speaker's not dialed in right.
Okay, the only way he can fix that would be to call in.
Right.
We can't support his technical issues. You'd have to call the phone number.
Okay, we'll move along with the current review of the plans, hoping that Mr. Stewart can call in.
Hello?
Hello, you're on. Okay, let's continue with the review
Wait a
of
minute, wait a minute, I'm
the
thinking
North
of something
Front
else
Street.
right now. I'm thinking about something else.
Excuse me, Mr. Stewart. You keep turning on your
Call the phone number.
audio.
Hello?
on. Hello? We hear you.
I think the computer
This
may
is
be.
chat.
Look at all these people in here.
Okay, well, enough of trying to accommodate Mr. Stewart for the time being.
Host muted you.
Have a-
Hello?
Hello? We have comments from staff and our township
Computer
engineer.
itself may be muted.
Um,
I'm gonna have to leave the meeting.
Here.
This is Miss Logan. Would you care to?
Computer itself may be muted.
What does this say? Mute.
I believe that the
Gary,
host.
I apologize. I
can
couldn't
mute
hear
him.
you.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead with the review of the plans for 3401, 3405. Would you review your comments, at this time?
Sure. If you want to go to Bob first, let me copy this phone number and
Okay,
see if Jeb can call in. Okay.
all right.
Thanks.
Mr. Gubik, would you care to review your comments for the plans 3401?
Certainly, Alex Greenlee is on the call, and he'd be happy to go over them with you. They are a revised version of the plans or the comments from last month. So Alex, if you would just go over the comments, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Bob. So basically, most of our remaining or outstanding comments have been addressed. One comment that kind of came up as a result of the plan revision and the sidewalk being proposed along front is that we would request ADA compliant ramps be installed on either end should the Planning Commission find the proposed sidewalk acceptable in the locations proposed. So aside from that, it's essentially administrative comments related to the financial security, which we will hold off reviewing until all remaining comments from the Planning Commission have been addressed. So that concludes our report.
Okay, thank you very much. Other members of staff have comments on Mr. Grubik's and Alex Greenlee's review? Members of the Planning Commission, do you have any questions or comments from Mr. Grubik and Mr. Greenlee's comments? Okay, hearing none. Betsy, is it timely for you to review your comments?
Yes. If you have reviewed the plan, the applicant has provided a 4-foot wide bituminous path along North Front Street. They're still asking for a waiver of sidewalk along Bergner Street and a waiver from the street trees along the length of the site. The additional comments that I have are to provide dates of revisions to the plans in the plan box, and then also to, if the waiver for the sidewalk along Front Street is approved, we would prefer a 6-foot wide path versus a 4-foot wide path to allow 2 wheelchairs to pass each other.
When am I able to make a comment?
Just as soon as we review any
Okay, I don't know. I've never done this before, so I do.
We'll give you a chance, Mrs. Alker.
Thank you very much.
Jerry, the applicant is here. I think he has some stuff to go over with related to the waiver requests.
Okay. Who does?
I would also state that they are requesting an action tonight at this meeting. Their deadline currently is June 20th, so it would have to go to the Board of Commissioners meeting on June 10th.
Okay. All right, with regard to the comments from Ms. Logan, does anybody from staff or the Township Planning Commission have comments with regard to her comments? Hearing none, then we'll move to who did just the developer, I guess, has comments that they'd like to make at this point. Was that your comment, Betsy? I didn't hear.
I'm sorry. What was your question?
Since we have no comments internally, further comments internally on your review, do we have anybody who's next on the agenda?
Greg, I think, would like to speak.
Oh, Mr. Rogowski?
Yep.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Once again, members of the Planning Commission, appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you. As staff has indicated, really the principal issues, continue to be some of the waiver requests related to the plan, specific to the sidewalk and street trees. The plan was resubmitted as indicated with a 4-foot wide bituminous walkway shown along North Front Street. We continue to ask for a waiver from sidewalk along Bergner Street. We provided some additional supplemental photos, which we'd like to discuss with the commission quickly. related to our desire to have that waiver granted for the Bergner Street frontage. In addition to that, it's our I'll say position or request as outlined in the waiver request with respect to the street trees. There are a number of existing mature trees along the frontage of North Front Street that we believe provides a similar, if not equivalent, sense of place that is being requested with respect to the streetscape of North Front Street. But moving on specifically to Bergner Street, Bergner Street is a frontage opposite of the proposed area of development. It is all existing. As you'll note in some of the pictures that Betsy is currently displaying, we do have some conflicts with respect to existing trees, as well as existing landscaping that would need to be removed to be able to install such a sidewalk along this Bergner Street frontage. Bergner Street is not a high volume traveled road with respect to vehicular traffic. Certainly pedestrians, could access and utilize the cartway of Bergner Street to be able to make that east-west connection. We are providing a sidewalk along Montrose Street. Once again, that any foot traffic that might find themselves along the Front Street corridor could utilize to get them back into the area of 2nd Street where a more prominent pedestrian access network exists. As I'm sure the commission is familiar, the only real crossing of the Interstate 81 corridor that currently exists from a pedestrian perspective is via North 6th Street. We would not recommend, or certainly I wouldn't think that anybody would recommend trying to advocate for pedestrians to utilize the North Front Street corridor to be able to make that transition across the 81 and Front Street, I'll say, intersection. And the capital area greenbelt it naturally pushes traffic, both bicycle and pedestrian, up Vaughan Street in order to try to get them, I'll say, back towards 6th Street to make that pedestrian crossing. So we don't believe that it's desirable to, we do believe that this Montrose Street connection will serve as a reasonable connection to create that connection between Front Street and other existing pedestrian facilities further within the east side of the property. Once again, as the pictures indicate, there's a number of existing things that we're working around with respect to that. That is our current position as the waiver is requested. We are not proposing a fee in lieu of the Bergner Street frontage, just to be clear. Betsy had made that comment. It is our intent to request a waiver for not providing the sidewalk at all. With respect to HRG's comments, just wanted to acknowledge Alex and Bob's comments. We do intend to provide the ADA ramps at each end of the North Front Street pedestrian walkway. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Question, Mr. Rogowski from Township staff. Ms. Logan, do you have any further comment?
No, I do not.
Okay. Okay, the Planning Commission, did you have any further comment?
This is Commissioner Rothrock.
Oh yeah, sorry, Commissioner.
I have a question for Ms. Logan. Do you have a recommendation on the waiver of the sidewalk and also the bituminous sidewalk rather than concrete?
So my recommendation was that the bituminous path is acceptable if it would be a 6-foot wide path. Currently, I'm not recommending approval of the waiver for sidewalk on Bergner, nor am I recommending approval for the waiver from street trees.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for asking for that clarification, Mr. Rothrock. Members of the public, now is there opportunity to raise questions of staff and or the engineer for the project, Mr. Rogowski? Do I hear any comments?
Terry, it looks like we have a lot of people on. Do you want me to go through and ask if they have any comments?
If you would be so kind.
Okay.
Yes.
Sarah, would you like to start? Now it's time for comment.
Okay, the only issue I wanted to discuss was the building of the medical center or dialysis center on the property. that is in my community, in my neighborhood called Montrose here. And it's a residential, quiet family neighborhood that's, safe for bike riders and all that. And I really do not care to see a building that looks like that, especially, or any kind of business that would interfere with our the quality of life of our neighbor in our neighborhood. And I believe that would, and I strongly do not want that built here. And I think it's just bringing more more commercialization into closer in here around us. And I don't care for that at all. I disagree with having that built here. That's my only comment.
Could you please state your address?
3508 North 2nd Street.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, Jeb, are you able to hear us and to provide comment?
I'm garbled, so I hope the connection's okay.
We can hear
My name
you
is Jeb
now.
Stewart, 3507 North Front Street, just up from Montrose. Last meeting in April, I submitted a packet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
She said.
His video is not working very good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
He's frozen again.
Oh dear.
Do you have his phone number, Sarah, that you could call him and have him call in?
Yeah, I'm going to do that right now. I already called him one time, so I'll just do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
I provided the phone number in the chat to him. I don't know if he knows where the chat is, but
Is it in his email?
it is in his email. Yes.
Okay, I'll have him look at that because.
Thank you. Okay, let's try. I have a Kelly and Kristen. Did you want to provide any comment?
Yes, thank you. We are Kelly Wyatt and Kristen Zellner, and we live at 3410 North 2nd Street, and we are right next to the parking lot of 3401. So our concerns are varied. We have felt that our neighbors have been good to us over the years. We have had some problems. We've been in this house for 8 years. It took us about 5 years to ask or to have action taken for our neighbors to correct their drainage issue that flooded our front yard for years. We have the same concern about this other property going up and the runoff and the drainage. That is huge for us being right next door, basically attached to the next door parking lot. So that's our first and our biggest concern. In addition to that, the trees are a definite concern for our neighborhood. When we first purchased this home, it looked the way it does now, except for the Symphony building was there on the property at 3405. But we are concerned about the aesthetics and what our property value will do over time if the landscape is so dramatically changed. Kelly?
We also really value the sidewalks. We ride bikes, we walk our dogs. As Sarah mentioned, it's a neighborhood, it's a community. We're out and about a lot. And so for us, the sidewalks are important. It's also about protecting and enjoying the beauty of the river. So wherever we have trees and we have sidewalks, that gives us access to that. So, but again, primarily we are very concerned about drainage. Our whole front yard turned into a lake for years. It took us probably 5 or 6 years to get it addressed. And we're concerned that if there's any waiver given for anything to do with drainage, we'll run into problems. We are in a flood zone. And so anything that increases that for us will lead to more flooding for the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Could I speak to that? My name is Sam Levine. I live at 3501 North 2nd at the corner of 2nd and Montrose. And to Kelly and Kristen's point, we're very concerned about the drainage. Recently, there has been an ongoing issue with sewage backup. And we're concerned with what having this property on that lot will do to the drainage, to additional sewage backup in the neighborhood. And again, to Kelly and Kristen's point, to the neighborhood makeup, I think sidewalks are critical. And the other issue that we're really concerned about is this corner is known for a lot of accidents. While there's a 4-way stop sign on 2nd Street, there are constantly people going through the stop signs. There have been numerous accidents there, not to mention those who are traveling north on Front Street, traveling south on Front Street, trying to make a left-hand turn onto Front. I myself was in an accident several years ago there where someone didn't stop and hit me, but there have been numerous accidents at that corner. I just can't imagine what someone going for dialysis, if they're traveling south on Front Street, just the risk with that as well. I just think it adds considerable risk and traffic issues for the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Levine.
I'm back.
There you go.
May I speak? Sorry, I had an unstable connection. My name is Jeb Stewart, 3507 North Front Street. At the last Planning Commission meeting in April, where we submitted a packet of information talking about the character of this neighborhood and specifically the Front Street properties. And our position at this point is kind of echoing what Sam has said and Sarah to a degree, is that we feel that this is an intensive use for this neighborhood, both in terms of size of building, lot coverage, and parking. This has been a stable neighborhood for the last 95 years, at least on Front Street, and of course the residential areas evolving shortly thereafter. At the last meeting, we really talked about two specific things, and that was the front yard setback, which is being violated by the parking. I believe it's a 25-foot setback and the parking appears to be at 10 feet, even though the plan shows a 65-foot setback, and that might be conforming to the setback of the other properties and buildings in the 34 and 3500 blocks of Front Street, which go way back, quite frankly, to when these properties were developed with the hope of preserving the character of Front Street, the open space, the setback, the trees, and the landscaping, which is kind of unique when it comes to the Front Street corridor and other developments, specifically north of 81. At the meeting, we also, and even though this may not be germane specifically to the Planning Commission, there was discussion about the design of the building with Mr. Gates, and I said I would be willing to work with Mr. Gates and his development team in coming up with something that might be more suitable. Even though design is not within the purview of the Planning Commission to the appearance of the development, I did send this, which you can really see, to the town at an earlier elevation, which is not included, I don't believe, in the plans that were submitted. A revised elevation that came from Mr. Color. And then we came up with a third elevation that really borrowed elements from adjacent properties, and specifically the Meddy Evans building.
Mr. Stewart, your looks like your video froze again. And it looks like he is now gone.
Should we take an interlude? And
Sure. Do you want me to continue on with the other participants? Mark Hip, did you want to speak?
No, thank you. Not at this time.
Thank you. Sarah Gates, did you want to speak?
No, thank you.
And Sophia, did you want to speak?
I'm fine, thank you.
I believe I got everybody on the call who I would assume wanted to speak. If
Betsy?
Yep.
This is Jody Robarchek. I'd like to make some remarks.
Okay.
1 second. Yeah, so Jody Robarchak, 3529 North 4th Street. I'm also First Ward Commissioner. I do not support the waivers. I do not support a bituminous path. We need the sidewalks. Yeah, the sidewalks. This isn't let's make a deal. You know, I know they started out saying they weren't putting sidewalks in at all, and now it's a bituminous path. If you look at Front Street from Harrisburg all the way up to the Susquehanna Township line, there are sidewalks all along Front Street. And folks use those sidewalks, and we want sidewalks. If you pay attention to any of the planning we've done in the township, we've invested a lot of time and money in putting forward a plan that says that we want sidewalks wherever they can be placed in the township. Residents have come forward before, just simple single-family homes. And when they've combined or subdivided lots, they've put in sidewalks. So to expect a developer to put in a sidewalk is, you know, that's not a big burden for you. It sounds like you're just trying to save some money. And the trees, you know, I don't support a waiver on the trees either. And I find it really insulting that you're telling people that they should walk on the street on Bergner. There's enough room for them to walk on the street. I mean, I'm sure if your kids lived in the neighborhood, you wouldn't say, just go ahead and walk on the street, especially with an office building there. I mean, there's a lot of traffic, you know, and if I sound like, you know, I'm not happy about this, and I think they're not being good neighbors, it's because I've had some insight too. I happened to overhear a conversation between some of the attorneys on this project. They didn't know who I was, and they were talking rather freely about the project. And they seemed to think it wasn't a problem. It was going to go through fine, all their waivers. I don't know where they got that idea. And they had some rather unkind things to say about the homes in the neighborhood and even some of the residents. So you're not good neighbors. You're just trying to save a buck, and we want the sidewalks. We want the trees. And people do walk on Front Street, Greg. You know, we have low-wage workers that don't have cars. They walk to jobs on Wendy's and McDonald's. They walk up Front Street. I live in that neighborhood and I know that. So they would use those sidewalks.
Thank you, Commissioner Robarczyk, for those comments. I guess Mr. Stewart didn't rejoin us.
He did not.
Okay, that's unfortunate. But I think in the meantime, hopefully he will rejoin us. I would like members of the development team and/or Mr. Rogalski to respond to some of the earlier comments that were made. Specifically, the first two residents had commented about the runoff on the from the development site to the adjoining properties. Mr. Rogalski, do you feel that sufficient steps have been taken to protect those properties from additional runoff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do. The current design actually captures all the water that is proposed to come from the proposed building as well as the parking lot. It'll be entered into an underground stormwater detention basin that will be closest to Front Street. So the site would generally slope from east to west, and then it would discharge directly into a pipe that goes under Front Street into the river. So to the extent that we are capturing and managing our own water, we are doing that. I do not anticipate any issues related to water along properties along North 2nd Street.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
So In conjunction with that statement, there was a question about the waivers that were being requested specific to stormwater management. As we indicated, the intent of those waivers is actually to provide a more efficient means for this water to get out of there in case there is indeed a flood event along the Susquehanna River. So those waivers are not detrimental to the operation of the system. We actually believe that they are in fact enhancing its operation.
Okay, thank you. Could you address the situation of maybe improving the runoff conditions that are in that immediate area?
With respect to the property in question, in our property?
Yes, and any other situations that you evaluated as part of your review of that site?
Well, once again, we have an obligation under the terms of the stormwater management ordinance not to increase runoff from the site above pre-development conditions. So our analysis as part of that process is to take a look at where the water's going now and essentially not making it any worse than it is today. So our analysis does show that within the stormwater management report, was reviewed by the township engineer, and we feel that it is not only meets the intent of the ordinance, but also provides that protection that the residents are looking for.
Were you aware of any runoff problems in that immediate area?
No, sir, I was not. I'm obviously aware that there's a fairly large drainage project that was installed in the Uptown area in the most recent past, but we were not aware of anything specific to that individual property.
Okay.
That property is essentially above our site.
Okay. Mr. Grubik, could you address the improvements as a result of this project from your perspective, and also the perspective of the drainage improvement activity that's gone on in the area? I assume you're familiar with that drainage improvement project.
Yes, very familiar with it. As Mr. Gauski indicated, the site does currently drain from east to west towards the river. And what he has proposed as far as the design of the site is to capture all of the stormwater runoff from the developed site into an underground detention system, which will then be connected to part of the improved drainage system in the area, and then have a direct discharge to the river. So as far as the site itself is concerned, there will be no additional impact running off of the site onto any of the adjoining properties.
Okay. Could you address the stream or the drainage improvement project that was separate from this, and how that might impact those immediate properties in that area?
Wasn't aware of any particular problems that existed after the drainage improvement project was installed. It was extensive. It included both storm and sanitary sewer replacements and upgrades. And if there are individual lot owners that have particular property, or property owners that have particular problems on their lots, the intent of the project was to upgrade the drainage system to provide adequate drainage, and upgrades of the sanitary sewer lines for both the streets in the Montrose Park area, essentially most of the first ward up in that area. But this is the first time that I've heard any particular situations related to drainage problems after the major construction project was completed. But specifically with regard to this site, all of the water is all the stormwater runoff is being proposed to be collected, stored underground, and then released at a pre-development rate to the lowest part of the site, and then a direct discharge into the river.
Okay, thank you. You haven't heard any complaints? Did I hear you correctly? You haven't heard of any complaints since that project was implemented?
No.
Okay, and if people continue to have an issue with that project or with runoff, who would you suggest they touch base with? The sewer authority or?
Well, it was a township project in conjunction with the sewer authority. I would suggest that any drainage questions or complaints be addressed to Mr. Kratzer, the manager, And he in turn would get us involved to take a look at them and see what can be done to resolve them.
Okay, thank you. Any other follow-up questions from the citizens who made comments about drainage issues
Sorry,
early
it does
on?
look like Jeb is on again.
Oh, it's Jeb on again? Okay.
I just want to be clear. I want to make sure I understand. So I would say that maybe a year or 2 years ago, the property, so this is 3401, the back half of the property where the parking lot is located, they dug up a storm, like drainage, now it's rocked. Is that what we're talking about, is the improvement? Because that did improve the drainage for us and we were thrilled. They also put in a retaining wall next to our property. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about or a larger project that was done.
I think that was the project that we were referring to. Mr. Grubik, would you?
It was a large project. It extended throughout most of the uptown area, and very extensive improvements were done both by increasing the size of the storm sewers and also replacing many of the sanitary sewer lines, as well as improvements that were done by Suez Water and UGI and PP&L to an extent. So it was a major infrastructure improvement project. So in answer to your question, Kelly and Kristen, sorry I didn't get your last names, but there was a lot of work done in that area to solve the problem. And you indicated that the area to the rear of the property was in fact improved by the project.
That project. I'm not sure.
Mr. Chair, I think there's some confusion because the project that was done had no impact on their issues, because their issues from flooding were coming from the rear of the property. It was runoff from the parking lot from the building behind them. So although we did a project, that wouldn't have helped their issues. And what they're saying is the property owner, the applicant, had done a project in the rear of their building, a smaller scale, to help alleviate it. And I think the concerns are now, I know the concerns are that with the building of a new building and increasing the impervious surface, the other building is just spans half the block. This property, it looks like it will span most of the block.
Okay, so the wall that Mr. Grubik was referring to had no impact on this particular on your property, Kelly and Kristen?
No, this drainage issue came directly from 3401, the back parking lot that is connected to 2nd Street. It was a very small project, but big for that parking lot. They had to dig and make the drainage so that it wasn't running directly into our front yard, which we experienced for about 5 years since we bought the property. We were very grateful that they did correct the problem, but it took us a lot of contacting a Mr. Jeremy Redding at the law office. And we were really treated poorly during that time. And we really are we're not trying to prevent or attempt to prevent anyone from making money or building a building. We just want to ensure that that will not happen and to prevent it before it does happen, because it was really difficult to correct the problem. And we are very grateful that it was corrected finally.
Okay. I guess I'm a little confused by your comments, Ms. Robartek. And in light of that, I would suggest that that a meeting be held with Mr. Rogalski and or members of his team, and meet with Kelly and Kristen to allay any fears that this project is going to cause an increased problem for them. I think that's a reasonable request.
I'd be happy to do that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I live very close.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Stewart is back. Apologize to him for delaying his presentation, but Mr. Stewart, can you pick up where you left off?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear
As
us?
I was saying, we had offered to work with Mr. Gates and the development team to try to devise a rendering for the building that would be more compatible with the neighborhood. And I made that offer at the last Plan Commission meeting. I came up with a plan, sent it, a proposed elevation, sent it to the development team. Mind and a 2-page memorandum that I had sent to the Plan Commission in April, that we were looking for something that was more compatible with respect to a brick exterior, a hipped roof to give some elevation to the building, multi-pane windows, which you see both at the Meddy Evans building, the Pennsylvania Dental Association, and the other buildings on the block. Design was one issue if the building were to be approved and were to be built. Design was one issue. The other issue was the parking in the front. I believe that the setback requirement is 25 feet, and I believe the parking is at 10 feet from the property line. When we look at that section of Front Street, given the setback of the other buildings, which are somewhere around 65 feet, with open yards, trees, landscaping, to have that kind of parking that close in that section of Front Street, we feel is inappropriate. So I don't know if a waiver would be required. I think that the zoning does say that if, sorry about the clock, that if it's more heavily screened, it would be acceptable, but that may still require a waiver. And our position is if it's accepted here, maybe it's accepted in other places, what precedent is being set. And particularly here, we're looking at more of a residential neighborhood, even though some of the buildings on Front Street have been converted to office use. They still walk and talk residential in terms of their design, their architecture, and so forth. So we feel that the additional screening won't really solve the problem. The setback requirement is a setback requirement, and we're still requesting that it remain at least at 25 feet from the property line.
Harry, if I could follow up on that comment.
Yes, please.
As we discussed at the last meeting, they have provided the additional screening. They are in compliance with the zoning ordinance, even though it's not conducive to the Front Street corridor. But they would not need a waiver from that parking requirement.
Okay.
That would be approved administratively, is what you're saying, Betsy.
I'm saying they met the requirements of the ordinance to have the 10-foot setback and encroach into the existing setback.
So that would be more of a subjective determination, I would assume. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be.
Well, no, I mean, there's specific criteria as far as the number of landscaping that are of shrubs and trees that they're required to plant in that area.
Okay.
So if they meet that count, then they meet the ordinance.
Yeah,
Even
which
though
may not comply or may not be compatible with the rest of the properties in Montrose, or in the Montrose area, but it still does comply with the current ordinance. So we still have.
And we wrote that specifically so that it would not be subjective, that it was quantitative, that you had a set number based on the layout.
Mr. Stewart, do you see any reduction in parking spaces that would still meet the ordinance and meet your objectives?
Well, I believe, first of all, I think 40% of the building needs yet to be rented. I think that the principal user is only taking 60% of the building. So we don't know what's going to happen in that remaining 40%. I'm not, in the weeds here necessarily. I'm from a design standpoint, but I think there are probably somewhere around 30 spaces, 35 spaces without tampering with any that are allocated within the setback area. The question, would that be sufficient to service the entire building once leased? And then if there is this issue about the condominium deal next door, which I don't know if that's been resolved from a land standpoint, maybe there could be a shared parking arrangement with the Meddy Evans people, and that those lots are never fully occupied. That's just one other observation. I don't know about the condominium issue was brought up at the last meeting. And I think I got the impression that further study needed to be undertaken by both the planning commission staff and the attorney involved. I don't know if that's been resolved.
Ms. Logan, can you address the legal issue with regard to the condo? And
I think Ms. Burns can probably address that. And Mr. Diamond is also our other solicitor who's on the call. So I think between the two of them, we can address your concerns.
Yeah, and this is Jim Diamond, and we did address that with the other attorneys. They had some kind of misperceptions of the law, but the reality is, obviously they have to go through the subdivision land development process in order to eliminate that lot line. Once they do, they can do a condominium, and the condominium would allow them to take the lot as one big entity in order to meet certain things like pervious, impervious, and yeah, that would give flexibility in terms of shared parking and those types of things. But really, for the SALDO purpose, subdivision land development ordinance purpose, there's no special rules for them. They still have to meet all of the requirements. It sounded like they were suggesting at the last meeting that that wasn't the case, but if they were suggesting that, that was not legally correct. But I think we are in agreement now, or their attorney is in agreement with our position on that. And I don't think there are really any open issues right now. Again, for this purpose, looking ahead to this being a consolidated lot, I think everything you're applying is exactly correct. And again, at least as they've proposed it here, they're counting the parking just in that, what they're calling a condominium unit. They would have some flexibility to move things around if they have enough spaces to cover the other building, et cetera. But there really aren't any open issues that need to be further looked at in terms of the condominium overlay.
okay. So the township's planning commission still has a review responsibility under that, under your interpretation and the planning code?
Absolutely. They have no special exemptions or special status, no special preference just because they're doing condominium. We can't discriminate against a condominium ownership. And once, the lot lines have been consolidated, et cetera, they can move forward with their condominium. But their consolidating lot line does trigger the right of the township and the obligations under the SALDO for them to do things like sidewalks and trees and all those things. There's no exception to that just because it's going to be a condo. It will now be a new legal lot that's never existed before once it's all combined. So that's, there's no grandfathering or anything like that. It's all being appropriately analyzed here, and they don't have any arguments to the contrary.
Okay, thank you very much. That's certainly clears up.
May I say something, Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
With that said, as it appears it may walk and talk as it were like one lot, we would hope that an accommodation could be made with Medi Evans to try to come up with a shared parking arrangement if additional parking was removed in order to maintain the 25-foot setback requirement.
Okay. That being said, I guess we have a challenge or an issue that Mr. Rogalski and his development team would have to consider, and that is that we have to vote as a planning commission tonight to either approve or table this plan to consider any reconfiguring of those parking spaces and that setback.
Let me just clarify that if they meet the requirements of the ordinance, it's up to them whether they wanted to reconfigure it or not. And right now it sounds like, they are meeting the ordinance. So there's not really a deficiency, if you will, in terms of the, like I said, the condo theoretically allows additional flexibility within the footprint of that combined lot, but
right.
There's not a legal basis to necessarily deny it based on the park if it meets all the requirements of the ordinances.
Thank you for that clarification, sir. I understand what you're saying. I guess what I was thinking and I guess appealing to the developer and Mr. Rogalski as a representative of that team to maybe give us an additional month to table this plan and hopefully work that out between the adjoining landowners and the development team. I see that we have a number of waivers to approve. And looking ahead to that, or to those, there is one waiver in particular that is recommended that we deny a granting of that waiver with regard to sidewalks on Bergner Street. And to me, that indicates that the plan would have some deficiency, and whether or not we recommend that be moved ahead to the township commissioners, I guess remains to be seen. Ms. Logan, do you have any thoughts on the matter at this point?
I think you should take action because we do not have an extension of time unless the developer is willing to provide one. If the plan is deficient, then you have the ability to recommend approval or denial to the board.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do not believe these issues are going to change. And that is the simple reason why we are not in a position to grant said extension. I would certainly have a conversation or discussion with the Planning Commission. We would concur that a 6-foot wide bituminous walkway along Front Street, we would be willing to do that. We'd be willing to withdraw the waiver for the street trees along North Front Street and provide the, I think it's 8 trees. I would like to continue to have a conversation related to the sidewalk along Bergner. I do not believe a concrete sidewalk immediately adjacent to Front Street is an appropriate application. To be clear, the plan proposes a bituminous walkway that is set back from the Front Street corridor. Front Street is a collector street, an arterial, in fact. Great deal of traffic. If you've ever been down there on a Friday at 5 o'clock, walking down that thing, it's actually unnerving. So we believe that pulling that bituminous walkway away from Front Street is the prudent thing to do. I believe the developer is willing to put a bituminous sidewalk along the Bergner Street frontage. We would need some discussion with the township related to how to deal with existing trees and such. Obviously, it's not the desire of the commission to remove said trees. And I think that's where we stand at this point. If those elements would be considered for a favorable plan approval, we would be willing to make those this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Rogalski, for those comments. Before we move ahead, I guess I have 2 comments that I'd like to make for the good of the order. Number one is that there is a concrete sidewalk on Front Street in that property that we're under discussion with. It's somewhat covered by grass at this point. So the fact that there was a sidewalk there at one point, I think indicates that it certainly was feasible. Now, granted, traffic has increased, but to say unequivocally that a concrete sidewalk would not be acceptable there, I guess I have a hard time with. So I don't know whether you're aware of that or whether that's indicated, on the plan or not. Mr. Rogalski, are you familiar with that sidewalk that's there?
I'm aware of a sidewalk at the intersection of Front and Bergner that runs, I'll say, south to Vaughan. That you are correct. That sidewalk does exist. I'm not aware of a sidewalk on our property that exists that's underneath the grass. I did not see it. It is not on our survey.
Okay, I guess I'm mistaken then as to the location of your property versus location of that property or that sidewalk.
There's a thing down here that says
Okay, that, having said item number one, I think item number two, I would appeal to the members of the design team to look at their ethics code and whether or not proceeding with the project in this manner really meets their ethics code. As lawyers, engineers, or land developers. The Institute of Urban Land the Urban Land Institute has a code of ethics, and I would invite you to look at that. And I think that would encourage you to work with the neighbors in trying to accommodate a redesign of the physical structure that's to be built. And also looking at the site criteria as well. So appealing to your greater sense of value and respect for ethical codes under your respective professions would encourage you to reconsider working with our neighbors in that area to help meet the concerns raised by the Planning Commission with regard to compliance with our new comprehensive plan, and as well as to respect the character of the immediate neighborhood. Failure to do so, I think, is unacceptable. But in light of the situation of our ordinance, we'll proceed with looking at the approvals under this plan. Betsy, could you bring those up so that we could?
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Yes.
I have acted in an ethical manner for this entire plan presentation. I believe that's a wholly inappropriate statement. While you may have your own opinion, I would like to state for the record that this has been an ethical presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I apologize if you've taken offense of my comment. To be more specific, I was referring to the other members of your team who were represented at the last meeting of the Township Planning Commission, where they blew smoke at us with regard to the approval process and their ongoing disregard for neighborhood comments. So again, I apologize.
This is Mark Hipp speaking. I honestly have participated in these meetings, and I just wholeheartedly and completely disagree with the representations that are being made. I think this is beyond the pall, to be quite honest with you. And note my objection, please, for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, could you please provide your company? I'm sorry, I don't have that from the previous meeting.
One of the landowners of the subject property in question, River Oaks Associates.
I'd like to thank Mr. Hipp's comment.
Mr. Stewart, do you have some comments?
Yes, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear? I don't know if you can hear me or not. I'd like to say that we did submit a revised suggested elevation to the property developers, and we did not hear from them. And that's when it comes to working with the neighborhood, as Mr. Wilson had mentioned. Can anyone hear what I'm saying right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, because I'm half frozen here, I believe, but I want to point that out, that at the last Planning Commission meeting, it was suggested that we work with the developer on at least a revised and more accommodating design that would blend with the neighborhood. We came up with an elevation, suggested elevation, sent that to the development team, and we did not hear from them.
And that's what I was referring to in my comments, which were made, I felt, in an appropriate manner. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I think they've so stated. However, given the ordinance requirements that we have to deal with, we must proceed. So I guess take each.
For one moment, this is Sarah Gates. I have not yet spoken other than when asked if I had comment earlier. I just wanted to kind of third the comments of Mr. Rogowski and Mr. Hip from River Oaks. On behalf of Linlow Montrose, we are the developer who submitted this land development plan. And I just want to say that, you know, we would like to state for the record as well that we've made every effort to be completely ethical in our design intent and our work with our entire design team. I know Mr. Stewart's comments have been considered. I know some feedback has been given, and I'm more than happy to check tomorrow about the status of his most recent comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate the clarification. That being said, again, we must move ahead with consideration of the waivers. Do I hear a motion to accept approval of the waivers as recommended by the township staff? Depth of stormwater facilities is item number 1 under 19-501J, under 19-501K, basin outflow discharging into floodplain tailwater analysis. C, 22-501J, requiring 2 means of ingress and egress to the site. And D, 22-1107, a 6-foot sidewalk along 3401 North Front, being of a macadam or asphalt type material. Do I hear a motion approving, recommending approval of that waiver to the township commissioners?
This is Jonathan. I'll make the motion to approve as township staff recommends for number 1.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bowser. I appreciate that. Do I hear a second?
This is Bill Thomas. I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we accept the recommendations of township staff regarding the waivers under item number 1 of the township's 3rd review. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion is approved. The second recommendation for the township of the township staff considers waiver of the sidewalk along Bergner Street. Since Mr. Rogowski has indicated that that they will accept requirement of a sidewalk along Bergner Street. I think for the record, we still need to recommend denial of the waiver since we don't have a formal statement of that waiver. I think this is something that can be clarified in between now and the township commissioners meeting. But I would entertain a motion to, I guess before I move ahead with that particular recommendation, I would ask our solicitor to recommend how we handle this in light of Mr. Rogowski's, revised statement regarding that accepting a sidewalk along Bergner Street.
Yeah, and I think you can actually articulate it just like you did, that you'd recommend to the commissioners the denial of it as currently officially stated, but that the planning commission would, if that's the case, would look favorably or would recommend approval of, and then, you know, a
acceptance of that.
Acceptance. Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, then item number 2, I would entertain a motion to recommend a denial of the waiver as currently stated but also indicate our willingness to accept a revision on the part of the developer to comply with the sidewalk requirement on Bergner Street. Do I have a motion for that?
This is Jonathan. I'll make the motion again to request, to deny the waiver request for the sidewalk along Burger Street, and then also the street trees along the length of the site as well.
Do I hear a second to that motion?
Brian, I'll second that.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we recommend denial of the waiver request as presently stated along Bergner Street and also the street trees along the length of the site. Yes. Call for a vote at this point that the township or that we recommend denial of the waiver request as currently stated along Bergner Street and street trees along the length of the site. All those in favor of recommending the denial of the waiver signify by saying yes.
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 Yes. Okay, the township or recommendation number 3. Could you move that up on the screen? Thank you. Township staff recommends approval of the plan based upon recommended action on the modification of waivers. We recommend approval subject to the following conditions. It's item number 1 or A is address remaining comments provided by township staff, township engineer, and Dauphin County Planning Commission. Includes signatures, financial security, and a copy of the approved NPDES permit. Item B, provide executed easement agreements for stormwater utilities and pedestrian access along North Front Street since it's outside the right of way. Do I hear, is that all that's included, Ms. Betsy, with regard to recommendation number 3?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would accept the motion to recommend approval of the plan based upon recommended actions on the modifications and waivers, subject to the following conditions, and they're listed there and read accordingly by me. Can I have a motion to approve the plan subject to the following conditions? With the exception of the denial of waiver.
This is Jonathan. I'll make the approval that we approve the plan with the conditions that have been outlined by you and township staff.
Thank you. Do I hear a second with regard to the recommendation subject to modifications and following conditions previously stated? So I hear a second.
This is Brian, I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we recommend approval of the plan based upon recommended action on the modifications and waivers and subject to the following conditions. 2 conditions are stated, one with regard to remaining comments and 2 with remaining provided executed agreements for stormwater utilities, pedestrian access, etc. And denial of the waiver. So do I hear, do I call for a vote at this point? And all those in favor signify by saying aye or yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone else want to vote? Okay. Plan stands approved, subject to following conditions and the denial of the waiver for sidewalks. I guess that concludes discussion of this particular plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you this evening. Have a good
Thank
night.
you for patience in dealing with us, Mr. Rogowski. Look forward to hearing from you on that Bergner Street modification. Thank you. Okay, the next plan we have is tabled again. Is there any other business before the township? I guess there is none listed. Communications, Tri-County Planning Commission. Do we have an update from them?
I don't have anything for you guys tonight. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Planning Commission member comments. Just want to thank the fellow Planning Commission members in helping me deal with that difficult plan and the related issues associated with it. Appreciate your support. Item number 3, zoning and saldo amendments. Betsy, do we have an update on that?
Yep, so the final text, well, not the final, the first full draft of the zoning is complete. We're still working on getting some amendments from the committee members, but I'm hoping to have something in front of you within the next month or so. The saldo amendments, we have completed chapters 1 and 2, and those are under review right now.
Okay, so things are moving ahead. Appreciate the progress report on that.
Oh, I had one more thing, sorry. We are, the Tour de Belt is coming up on the first week of June, and the township has a group that's riding together on Sunday, June 6th. If anyone's interested, let me know by Wednesday if you would like to attend with us.
Could you clarify what that's all about?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. The Capital Area Greenbelt does a bike ride every year. So it would be riding bikes from, I think we were starting at Fort Hunter along the Capital Area Greenbelt.
Is that the whole green belt that's done, or just in the township?
That would be the whole Greenbelt.
Okay. And what's the distance mileage wise? Do you have any idea? Or how long it takes?
I should know that. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Do you know how long it takes?
I think it's 20 miles. And I think they're estimating 3 hours.
Okay. All right. Thank you for bringing that up. That sounds like a fun activity. You need to be notified by when again?
5 p.m. Wednesday.
5 p.m. this Wednesday. Okay. Any other business or communications anybody like to raise at this time? Okay, I guess we call for adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
This is so moved. Oop,
Okay, it's been so moved. Second? Or has it been?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We adjourn the meeting for tonight. Again, thank you all. I guess we should have a vote, but I guess everybody is in favor of that. So have a good evening.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good week. Hey, Del,